The way we measure the distance between two notes is either a whole step or a half a step. Now, with that newfound knowledge, I'll show you how to use it in the next episode. Okay, before we begin, have you ever seen the Little Dipper in the midnight sky? By way of review, we learned this in episode number 5, Am I Your Cup of Tea? Only 7 letters. Then we reinforced it in episode number 7, part 1. Recall our musical alphabet is simply A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Did you notice a pattern in the way that I wrote those letters? Only 7 letters, but 2 sets of letters live next door to each other. B and C and E and F. They're best friends. Nothing, and I mean nothing, comes between them. And once more, in episode 7, part 2. And if you take nothing else away from this discussion today, just remember that there are only 7 letters of music, A through G. And remember this, 2 sets of letter, B and C, and E and F, live right next door to each other. Now the question is why? Why does B and C and E and F live right next door to each other? Well, let's start to take the steps to finally understand this. All right, now let's start talking about the distances between these notes. The distance between A and B is 1 whole step. The distance between B and C is 1 half step. The distance between C and the next D is 1 whole step. And then from D to E is another whole step. The distance from E to F is a half step. That's why nothing lives between them. And the distance between F and G is 1 whole step. Now, when this continues to the next day, the distance from this G to the next A would be 1 whole step. But that begs the question, what if we started with A and we took a half a step off of A? Down like a bomb we would fall. So we need a stepping stone. What lives between A and B? I mean, after all, there's a perfectly useful space there. Well, what lives between A and B is A and a half. What lives between B and C? Absolutely nothing. What lives between C and D? C and a half. What lives between D and E would be D and a half. What lives between E and F? Remember, they're a half step apart. There's nothing that lives between them. What lives between F and G would be F and a half. And what lives between G and the next A would be G and a half. However, it's customary to refer to them as sharps. So you have A sharp, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp. And this is a very simple way to build what we call a chromatic scale. Chromo is Latin for colorful. This is a super colorful scale. It's the scale that we use in our Western European culture. And boy, is it colorful. There should be 12 letters if we did this correctly. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Bingo, we've got it. Years ago, I was teaching this concept to a large group of guitar players, and a young man raised his hand and said, Mr. Preston, you've just in essence lied to us. You said there were only 7 letters in music. Now you're telling us there's 12. However, this stuff is all related. Recall in past episodes, we talked about something called psychoacoustics. It's how the human brain hears a sound and interprets it to be a musical event. When we hear the letter A, and then we hear the next note A sharp, we say, okay, that's a different note from A, but somehow they're related. Now, I suffer from a malady, which is not a malady at all. It's something called synesthesia. And with synesthesia, you have these weird things that start to happen. Like some people, for example, will hear the word Monday and they'll get a certain taste in their mouth. They'll hear the word Tuesday and they'll get a different taste in their mouth. Now, for me, I can tell you how this works musically for me in a visual way. Remember the example that I used? I asked you the question, have you ever seen the Little Dipper in the midnight sky? Well, how many of you, when I asked you that question, could kind of see it in the backs of your minds? You see, that's what happens with me and music. For example, when I hear the note A, I see the color red. B is always blue, kind of sky blue. C is white. D is kind of like a fire red. E is midnight blue. F is black, and G is always green, kind of like grass green. Now, if I were to hear the note A sharp, I see in the recesses of my mind maroon. But you see, A and A sharp are both in the red family. When I hear C, I see white, but when I hear C sharp, I see gray in the same families. Now, D is like a fire red. D sharp, I can't explain to you what that is. I suffer from something the last several years called ocular migraines, where I get these really bright, vivid colors flashing in my eyes. And that's the first time in my life I've ever actually vividly seen the color of a D sharp. It's kind of like a fire red, but crazy, deep, beautiful fire red. F is always black, and an F sharp is always like a black hole. G is always grass green, but a G sharp is hunter green. And that's how synesthesia affects the way that I view music. So my point in all of this is you can see how this is all related to each other. A sharp is just another value of A. But this is only half of the story. In the next episode, I'm going to show you the other side. We're going to be talking about weddings, black holes, and flat tires. Sounds kind of ominous, doesn't it? But it's all going to work out. Until then, all the best.